Okay, so I want to welcome everyone to this week's edition of the Northern Nerdcast, where we showcase the geeky, nerdy people, groups, and events that happen in and around the city of Edmonton. The Northern Nerdcast is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. Please feel free to head on over to albertapodcastnetwork.com for a list of amazing Alberta-made podcasts. And if you go right now, there are so many new podcasts that they just added to the list, so you might want to go check that out. We also would encourage everyone that if you like this episode, to share it with all your friends on social media. This way, we are able to help grow the community here in Edmonton and keep everyone up to date on the latest news and information regarding the geeky, nerdy people, groups, and events that happen in and around the city of Edmonton. Also, if you or someone you know would like to be featured on our show, please feel free to head on over to northernernetwork.com. Now, let's get on with the show. Okay, so welcome back to another edition of the Nerdcast. My name is Dan Schessel, and on today's edition of the Nerdcast, we have a new or another co-host that I don't normally have on the show, but Marcus.
Returning guest star.
Returning
guest co-host.
Guest star.
Sure.
Yeah.
I like star.
We'll have to put it on the back of your seat there.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll get a tattoo.
Returning guest star. Awesome. So we have Marcus, and we also have Jeff Russell joining us on the screen tonight. Say hello.
Hey, everybody. How are you?
Well, I'm doing good. I'm excited to have you here, and I'm excited to have Marcus here. I'm excited to have everybody here. This is going to be a great episode.
You're just excited.
I'm just excited. Okay, so here's the thing. I've been on so many podcasts the last little while. I'm just like rolling in the podcasting.
Nice.
Yeah, it's great.
Nice.
I was on a football podcast. Yeah.
Huh.
That's an actual
By accident?
No, that was an intentional thing.
On their part?
Yeah.
It was an accident?
Yes. The Tight Ends podcast is part of the Alberta Podcast Network. And Vanda needed a co-host for the week. And I'm like, hey, I can co-host things. And after I said that, I looked at what the podcast was, and I'm like, oh, it's a football pod. Okay, well, I guess that's what's happening now. And so I furiously looked at everything I possibly could find out about football in the last month and a half. I didn't know enough about CFL because I follow and watch the CFL, mostly the Eskimos. I know that end. And I was okay, and we just had watched the Grey Cup, and so we were talking about the Grey Cup. I'm like, okay, I can do this. But when it came to the fantasy football end of things,
no clue.
Not a clue. So thankfully, I had my brother. I had somehow convinced him that I needed him to be here with me, and so he was here, and he totally bailed me out
Nice.
for the fantasy football thing because he knew exactly what he was talking about. It was great.
That's what brothers are for, right?
It truly is. And this is the first time I've actually got him to ever do something like that before. He did not want to be on the podcast at all. And he just knew that I just couldn't do it. So he so heroically, I would say, stepped up to the plate and saved my butt. It was great. And aside from that, I was also on Karen Unlin's podcast for that one for the Alberta Podcast Network. It's going to be great. We're going to have that one. I think it's going to be up before the end of the month here, so that'll be awesome.
She was at the expo, right?
Yeah, she was at the
expo. Yeah, I met her there. Very nice lady.
Which, by the way, just aired. We just aired that episode.
I know. I saw that come up. I'm like,
I
was holding on to that
2
thing
months ago.
Yeah.
It was a long time. I was there for that with you guys too as well. I was one of your students' audience. I love I love the Lego things. I'm glad I didn't get Aquaman because that Lego figure probably would have hurt me. but
yeah, so I just aired it, and the reason why I just aired it is because we had a guest lined up for last week, and sadly that guest had to back out, and I'm like, oh man, I need something to put in for this weekend, so I still had that
That
one.
was your ace up the sleeve.
That was my ace up the sleeve, and
Nice.
so I'm like, well, the whole thing was, I'm like, I may need this for a rainy day, so that's what we held on to. So yeah, it was good, and it was one of those timeless ones, right? So it was great. Yeah, it was good. So each week here on the Nerdcast, we like to dive deep into our guest's soul and really get to know that person. And so each week we like to ask our special guests, what is on your geek shelf? And so, Jeff, what is on your geek shelf?
well, it's going to be hard if you're going to dive into my soul. I believe I sold that to a girl named Jennifer when she was 16. But okay, on the geek shelf, I thought I'd grab two things because this is brand new. This is Xanther's Guide to Everything. This is brand new from Wizards of the Coast. It got released in early November. This is the talk of the town if you're anywhere into playing Dungeons and Dragons. Normally, I would have brought this up in a review somewhere else, but tonight looks like a good night for it. This is their brand new guide to character builds, and it's got a whole bunch of nice little GM tools in it. There's some good and there's some bad to this. The good, I thought, was some of the character builds in here are amazing. If you're really into wanting to develop your character. I know for me as a DM or a GM, depending on whatever you want to call it, because I GM a lot of space science fiction games too, kind of like Marcus does too.
Mm-hmm.
For me, characters are everything. I like a story. I facilitate a game. I play a story. This one has a whole bunch of great ideas for you to build your character and give me the story I want. I want your character to have a story. Don't come to my table if you don't have goals, aspirations. I want to see that character come out. You know, anybody can roll a bunch of dice and say, "Oh, look, I'm a bounty hunter," or I'm a fighter that uses 2 swords. No, I want to know why you can use 2 swords. I want to know what made you become a bounty hunter. I want to know where you're going. This guide gives you some amazing tools to use that, as well as develop your character into different paths along the way. I don't know. How do you like that kind of stuff too, Marcus, from your players?
I haven't gone quite as deep into that with some of my players. I like them to have definitely have a backstory, and I stole a trick from Ross Rockefeller on Dice for Brains, and Ben Yendel on the Heidi and Wade does this on his Heroes show. He'll ask the characters or ask the players something in character at the start of each episode. So I started GMing a group about just about 2 years ago now, just after Dan got me into it. And at first, we were all new to tabletop gaming. We'd been friends for 20-odd years and played video games together and that sort of thing, but never tabletop. So at first, we were very much like, well, the paper says I get these dice, so there we go. And I think we're now on our 3rd campaign. We've done Force and Destiny, Edge of the Empire, and now we're on Age of Rebellion. And it's much more about the characters. It's much more character-driven.
Yeah,
to the point that in our session last week, my brother's character, who's not really a fighter, he's a propagandist, he got critically hit really badly and lost a limb. And he's a basilisk, so he's got 4 arms. So I'm like, well, I guess he lost an arm. And he's like, no. I lost a leg because that's way more interesting for the character to have to put up with 1 leg rather than 3 arms. I'm like, sure.
It's how you develop characters. Yeah. Xanthar's Guide has, they really get into the story-driven of it. I think that Wizards of the Coast over the last few years with their D&D 5e version of it, and I'll sort of say it's probably one of the best versions of Dungeons & Dragons I've played in my 38 years of this ridiculous game. But Yeah, it's been that long. But this one gave everybody kind of a new version to where they want to take their character. The book itself, it's got new things for bards. It's got new colleges, glamour, swords, whisperers for clerics. It's got new pantheons for Warforge, or a Forge domain if you like, your dwarven cleric, which is your atypical cleric. I find that a lot of people bring to the table. Druids of Dreams. The Arcane Archer for fighters I thought was pretty interesting. They have a little build here for the Drunken Master, which is for the monk class, and I thought, and that to me, as I was reading it through it all, I couldn't get rid of that Jackie Chan movie out of my head. Remember that one that he made, like, I don't know how many years ago, and that's all I thought. So I quickly kind of was playing around with it. So I quickly made up my monk Drunken Master, and I called him Jackie Chan because it made sense to me. Some of the things, it's got some new Dungeon Masters tools in there, which portray to like DMing, which is more where I don't play games. I like to facilitate stories and see where characters take them. I like to see where people take their stories. Actually, I never have anything laid out in stone. But they had some good things for falling, traps, some new tool proficiencies for people to actually use, and a lot of stuff for. I think it's really good for new DMs out there. Like a lot of us have been playing for, we'll say, 10 years or more. We already have these tools built in. So a little bit of the book was a little disappointment for me on that. I mean, I thought it would be geared more towards the characters, which I really think is where it should be. I mean, players love this kind of stuff, right? And then it had, 10 pages of names in the back. And I thought, now you're looking at 10 pages of filler names. Arabic names, Celtic, Chinese, Egyptian, English, Greek, German, Japanese, Mesoamerican, Norse names, like 10 pages of names. And to me, that's what Google is for. I mean, why am I going to spend $65 on a book so you can give me 10 pages of names that I Google on a regular basis because I write a lot, right?
There's like 10 billion baby name pages. Go through that. Like, make something up.
Yeah. Put in some consonants and some vowels and say, here's my character's name.
Yeah.
But just go with generic, like my monk's now Jackie Chan. I mean, that's pretty good. I like that, right? I don't need the 10 pages of names. But other than that, pretty good, actually. I thought it was really, for players, it's a great tool. For new Dungeon Masters, I think it's also a fantastic tool. It gives them a little bit more room to design and create those stories as well too, because I think for a Dungeon Master, a lot of us think of, you have 5 people, you enter room A, it's got 3 kobolds in it, you kill the kobolds, there's a door, you go to the door, you go into another room, you kill another 4 kobolds. That doesn't really, I like to see things like this that provide more storytelling tools, right? Because that's really, you're creating a story. So.
Yeah, otherwise you're just playing Yahtzee.
Exactly, you're playing Yahtzee, and with Edge of the Empire. I mean, I'm not sure. Did you play? There's a whole bunch of those little booklets. I picked up one of those booklets for, I think it was like $40 or something like that from Warp One, and I picked it up, and my players totally went off the rails. I mean, I looked at that was being $40, and no matter what I did, I couldn't get them to get back into that story. But let me tell you, that was one heck of a year playing Edge of the Empires, because the story that did develop was absolutely amazing, and I never regretted it. I grabbed the little things out of the book, but
that book is like, the books are fairly good. I personally, because I ran a big RPG for us, we had about how many players?
I think our biggest night there was 12.
Yeah, I think.
Wow. That was pretty big.
Yeah, so we had quite a few, and we usually had, I would say, around 8.
Yeah,
I think that's our standard 6 to 8. Yeah, and trying to get people to do what you want to do, you can't do that.
No.
So you just have to go with it, and I know for any kind of GM out there, the best thing is to try get your players to create it's a joint storytelling thing. I don't know. Did we just lose Jeff?
Uh-oh.
Okay, so we may have lost our guest. Yeah, we did. We totally lost our
We're
guest.
down at Jeff.
We're down. Jeff down. Jeff down. All right, so I will take this moment to do our first ad. He's coming back, but we'll take a moment here and talk a little bit about ATB.
Pointing at me for some reason.
Yeah. So one of our sponsors is the Alberta ATB
Alberta Treasury Board.
yeah.
Yeah.
Treasury Bench.
That's
and,
the one.
And one of the things that Alberta Treasury Bench is or ATB is about is their new program called ATB Listens. Now, ATB, if you go to their website, atb.com/listens, you can find out more about how ATB is listening to everyday bankers or people. Customers, yes.
Yeah,
that's
the word.
There we go.
Exactly.
And they actually have a belief that banking can create happiness, which is
not my experience.
I don't typically go to a bank and go, gee, I'm so happy to be here. But you know what? Honestly, I've gone to ATB for the last little while, and honestly, I actually am enjoying banking with ATB. It's one of those things it's not exciting, but it's better than most places, and I've had a great time with them. They're actually pretty good.
That's a terrible slogan. It's not exciting, but it's better than most places.
But I do find that they are actually listening to some of the concerns that I have as a banker. A banker? I'm not a banker.
No,
I'm a customer.
Customer. We're gonna go with customer.
Sure.
Yep.
I'm an online, never walk into a bank, but I do have some dealings with ATB as well too, and they're friendly. They're great. I think out of the three banks I deal with on a regular basis, I think they're pretty fantastic actually.
Yeah, I would have to agree. So go to ATB Financial or atb.com/listens to find out more. All right. We got Jeff back. Yay.
Yeah, I have crappy internet tonight, I think.
It's all good. It just timed it out. That's all. Like you just came back as we were doing the ad. Everything's all good.
Yeah.
You did say you had something else that you had on your shelf there.
Okay. There's a I'm a reader, and I also like to write quite a lot too, and it's very rare that I'll come across a book that actually just kind of grabs my attention. And I was in I think a Twitter fight with a certain author, and he also plays Viari on Acquisitions Incorporated for Wizards of the Coast. His name is Patrick Rothfuss. He's a character on Acquisitions Incorporated, and he's also a writer. And I never really thought that I realized that I haven't read his book yet. 10-year anniversary. This is not the 10-year anniversary. This is the cheap version I picked up. This is Patrick Rothfuss, Name of the Wind. If you're going to read something fantasy-based, it blew me away. As month of November, and you know how busy it was for me in November.
Yeah.
I'm writing my own 50,000 words for the Writers of the Month thing. And I managed to find time because I got so engrossed in this book, I picked it up, that I actually read the 800 pages as well during the month of November. Totally blown away by it. I think the use of language, I think the characters, it's amazing, and it's a little story within a story. And I just thought it was so well written. It's amazing. I mean, you can tell that Pat was a chemical engineer in college because he slips in chemistry throughout the entire book, and I was like, oh, I know what he's talking about, but he put it in a fantasy term. But still, it was. I would honestly suggest that this is a pickup. If you haven't read it, read it.
That sounds awesome. What was it called again?
It's called The Name of the Wind. It's Patrick Rothfuss. I can put it up here and make everybody just kind of see it a little bit better. And he has a second book out too, which is The Wise Man Fears. It's supposed to be a trilogy, and he hasn't written the third book. So, just in case, Pat, you're listening, can you please write the third book? Because I'm going to finish off the second book this week easily.
Get on this.
I already sent him a nasty note, too, saying I'm displeased with you not having the third book out. So.
That's awesome. I think Marcus is right now buying the book on Amazon.
I'm adding it to my wish list on Audible because I don't have a ton of time to read, sadly, but I do have a ton of time for audiobooks.
Oh, it would be, if you get a good reader for it, it's going to be amazing for you if you get a good reader for it. I do audiobooks too, going back and forth to work. Actually, I mostly just download podcasts, and I listen to those going back and forth to work and at my desk. So I'm a podcast junkie.
This is narrated by Nick Podell. I have no idea.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
Let's hope that Nick is good. Nick, are you out there? Can you please be good for this?
Get good, Nick.
I just did Artemis. That was written by the same guy as The Martian.
Okay, how was that?
It was good. I really liked just like with The Martian, there was lots of really good technical details that appealed to me and made sense. They built a really cool. It's all based in a city on the moon called Artemis, and they built up a cool universe around that. I didn't love the main character, but she sort of grew on me throughout the story. And it's read by Rosario Dawson. She was fantastic. She did a great job of it. So yeah, it's worth a listen. I liked it.
A good moon-based movie, not like what was that one, Iron Skies, where they had the Nazis up on the moon, right? Nobody ever seen that movie? That's a B grade. That's a B grade classic. Let me tell you.
Ooh, I love the bad movies.
I know you
love
do.
The bad movies.
It's horrible. It's probably one of the most worst movies I've ever seen, but yet I remember it.
Nice. Yeah, you remember the bad ones. We met with his name escapes me right now. Why can't I think of it?
Oh,
he played Gimli on Lord of the Rings.
Okay, yeah, at the expo, yeah.
Yeah. We
that guy
and interviewed him. And I asked him about a really, really bad movie that he had done called Chupacabra Terror. And he called me a bitch and laughed at me, and it was fantastic. It was, yeah.
That was
my favorite moment of the con, and it was a really good con for me. Why can't I remember his name? It's just fallen out of my head. You have like 10 monitors. You should
I know.
I'll be able to look this up.
Keep talking.
I can't remember. My daughter really liked Rose McIver because she's a big iZombie fan. And she managed to catch Rose's panel as well and got to stand up there and ask her a question, and then did photos and what am I trying to say? And did the autographs afterwards and got a little bit of a chance to talk to her. What an amazing individual, actually, too. She was very, very pleasant.
John Rhys Davies.
Liked her. She's still disappointed that Nathan Fillion won't come back to the home city because, we're also big Nathan Fillion fans as well, too.
Like he refuses to come back?
I just, he was at Calgary, but Nathan Fillion was born here in Edmonton. Like, why?
Yeah, he was. So what happens if he's at home, he doesn't want to go to the con that's here because he wants to spend time at home with his family.
Oh, sure.
I know he has gone to the Calgary Expo.
Yep. Was there this year?
Yeah, if he's in Edmonton, he doesn't really want to go. He may show up to the expo, but he doesn't want to. He wants to spend time with his family when he's here.
John Rhys Davies. There we go.
Yeah.
I follow Nathan Fillion on Twitter, and maybe a month or two ago, he did a bunch of he'd do a picture of himself somewhere, and he's like, in this mini fridge is a Firefly t-shirt or something, and one was next to a dumpster in like a Home Depot parking lot, and he's like, the first person who finds it gets it. And I was sitting at work, I'm like, okay, if I could, I'm looking at this on Google Maps because I figured out where it was pretty quick. Like, I could probably get there in about 20 minutes. But I don't think my boss would be very impressed with me taking off for an hour to go chase Nathan's Fillions t-shirt in the parking lot somewhere. So, yeah.
You need my boss. He would totally appreciate that.
Yeah, I remember him doing that actually. Yeah, I couldn't. There's no way I could have got out of the work to do that. Yeah, he does fun things like that every so often. He's always doing crazy stuff, and then he'll always show up to what's it called, the theater sports as well when he's in town sometimes.
Yeah, he's kind of a little bit of a hometown hero, I think, around this house. So,
yep.
Apparently, Iron Sky has a sequel out soon.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Aaron.
I don't think they made a sequel to Chupacabra Terror.
No,
for the best, because that was so bad.
He did say there was a good story behind that as well. We did get the story out of that. The reason why it happened the way it happened.
Oh yeah,
because it was like some Chinese guy that wanted to make this film or something. I can't remember how it all.
No, that came after he had made the film.
Oh, that's right.
That was he was.
Oh yeah, because he was shaking hands, but he was so mad about how it turned out.
No, they had just watched it in like the screening room.
Yeah.
And he said he was just sitting there with his head in his hands, totally embarrassed at having been part of this movie. And a Chinese fellow came up to him and wanted to speak with him, and he just said, "No, I'm not interested. I just need a minute. Leave me alone." Well, the fellow had come from China. He had a number of financial backers to hire John Rhys Davies for some movie that they're making in China with a huge budget. And he unknowingly just sort of shot this guy down. He's like, "Nope, see you later."
Nope, not going to do it, right?
Yep.
And that's totally cool.
I really like that. And he called me a bitch.
Yeah.
No, that was before that.
That was before that.
That would be funny. You could respect that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard to hear because I had the microphone pointed the wrong way at the time because I was pointed it toward Marcus because he was asking the question, but you can faintly hear it in the interview.
Yep. And he wasn't mean, he wasn't rude.
No.
We were all laughing and having a very good time. He was very, very nice man, very excellent guy.
You know, and it was great too because my son got to get up there during his panel as well too on Friday night and ask him a question too. That's what happens when you have an entire family of, I'm going to politely call them nerds, but
nerdlings.
We all call our kids nerds too here. It's all
they're
good.
pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
Adriana, if you're at your mom's right now watching, sweetie, I'm really sorry, but you're a nerd.
Wear that nerdness proudly.
Oh, she does. She does. But it's great. No, it was a good expo this year. Really was kind of nice. We went to the on-spec panel as well too. I don't know. That's why that's my reason for going to Happy Hour Harbor Comics most of the days is to get the new on-spec magazine. It's the only place that sells it in the city.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my! I thought they'd have it at more places than that.
No, I'd like to see it hit places like because Warp has 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah,
I'd like to see it there. Popularity-wise, it's fantastic. I think some of the writing in it is incredible, and you have some first-time writers in there that are writing some amazing stuff. Like if you like speculative fiction, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it could be anything: horror, science fiction, fantasy, whatever. You get a good mix in each magazine. It's for short stories, can't beat it.
I know I've talked to the on-spec people quite a bit over the years because they're at like every convention, and some of the stuff that they have there is pretty impressive.
Oh yeah, and the art, like the cover art too, is like I'm a comic book guy, like from way back too, so I have to appreciate art. So, and my artist lives all the way in Denmark, so I don't really get to see a lot of her. So these are all local talented people, which is great.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing about on-spec, right? Is there's a lot of local talent in that pool of people because there's quite a few authors and artists and stuff like that are part of that whole group.
But you know, and they use people from Edmonton, and that's what I like to see. I mean, I'm a huge supporter of some of the local groups here in Edmonton. I think I got convinced to do My very first online Twitch experience was actually DMing a group out of Stony Plain. You've probably run across them on Twitter. That's the Take 20 group.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they do a whole Twitch thing. I've gone down there and I've done. I've DM'd their group. They actually play tested my next module I'm going to be releasing on the DMs Guild for Wizards of the Coast as well too. So
That's
they got
cool.
to play test that. They're a great group.
Yeah, they seem like a lot of fun, and I know they tweet my stuff a lot.
Oh, Jason's just like me. We want to support as much local talent as we can, whether it's from Edmonton or we have a friend down in Calgary who's a comic book artist and stuff like that. Richard, he does some really incredible work. We're going to try to make. I think this year we're going to try to make his NPC character famous.
So we have a comment in our little comment box thing. And if you are watching this live, or if you are listening to this right now, and you'd like to say, hey, I'd like to be a part of this conversation at some point, you guys can. Every Sunday night, except for on long weekends, we meet here online at 8 o'clock. And you guys can join us live. And there is a live chat thing as well. And we do have one from Brent Jens, who has been on our podcast before. And he says that the Pure Spec book is not true. That is not only at Happy Harbor, it's also at Variant Edition.
And where is it?
Variant Edition.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's two places, one on the West End, one downtown.
There you go. Just doubled the number of places.
There.
Yeah. That's great too. And I'd like to see that little short story magazine come out all over the city. I just have a huge respect for what they do here, and especially because they're local, to get it out there more, really get it accessible. A lot of people haven't even heard of it. That's what really surprises me. And when I mention it, people are like, I know we had our big writing group for this November. Everybody's trying to write a novel in a month too, and I brought that up too. And they asked me like, "What inspired you?" And I said, "Well, I've got I have these little magazines that come out, and I read these on spec." And they're like, "Oh, really?" Half these people didn't even know about it. And for me, if you want to be a good writer, you should probably be a good reader too. So.
Yeah, because I think actually, I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, that Danica LeBlanc, the one that one of the owners of the Variant Edition, I think her mom is part of Pure Spec. I think there's a connection there. Yeah,
no, that would be great too. It's nice to know they're out there more than what I thought.
Yeah. So what else are we talking about? We're going to talk a little bit more about RPGs as well. So I want to know when you are putting an RPG together, what is one of the things that you try to get your characters to do? Like, what is some of the world building, let's say, for your characters? How do you get them to be a part of that?
Oh, for me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I like to separate the idea of characters and players. Since characters are going to do one thing, players do another. And when you want to put it into world building a little bit, in the past, what I've done with world building is I have taken my players and we've all sat down at the table. So we're going to have what people would refer to as a session zero, where we're going to make our characters and we're going to talk about our goals and things like that we're going to do. With world building, we usually take a month. And we're gonna make a new world, decide what we're going to do, whether it's going to be science fiction fantasy, whether it's going to be strictly fantasy, because we play a lot of different genres, like Call of Cthulhu. We've played Shadowrun. I know you're laughing at somebody's comment. Edge of the Empire, Star Wars as well too. We've also played Traveller. We've played the actual Firefly game as well too. We like to sit down and we're going to say we're going to create a world. And I like to get the players together around the table, and I'll put some blank paper in front of them, and I'll say, I want you to give me your top 10 things that you want to see in this world or universe. And then we take it and we discuss, and we narrow it down to at least 5 community things. And then we start building a world. And it's easier to do on a fantasy thing, because we can say, let's draw a map. Like, you guys want to do some city stuff, and I'll let them provide me the input, because now they have a vested interest in a world or a universe. They're into it. They've helped make it. And if it's not already made, where do you guys want to be? What do you guys want to do? And they'd sit down and discuss stuff. I know my Roll20 group, when it came down to where everybody wanted to be, it was, we're all going to be from an orphanage. And it's very cliche-ish. It is. But when they started writing these character backgrounds and we started seeing these things coming in, it was phenomenal how much detail has been on it. And they all went off and did different things, and now we're coming back for whatever reason. We're all getting back together. It's like life when happened, and then life happened again, and we're coming back as a group, which is kind of different. I mean, I've done things too, like saying, you guys don't know each other. You're all captured. No, don't bother putting any equipment down because you're all been drugged, and now you're in Jabba the Hutt's palace as, as slaves, and you're going to have to think about how you're going to escape, or whatever Hutt. That was my premise to get the Edge of the Empire people on board originally. They were all drugged and were going to be sold off as slaves. But that was, there was no world building. They didn't even know where they were. So there's that portion of it too. But world building takes time, effort, and you really got to get your players' input. Because one of the worst things you could have as a GM or a DM is to spend an entire year designing a world and putting it out there on the table, and you have your 5 to, you guys had 12. That kills me. I'd start doing drugs.
It is too many. I'll tell you that. It's chaos.
It is. But when you get those people around your table, and all of a sudden, you have one person that likes it, and the other 6 are like, oh, I don't really like this. They don't have a vest. They didn't help create it. They didn't help do anything. And you're going to get some good responses, and you're going to get some bad responses. And most of the time, you've wasted an entire year out of your life making something that no one really wants to play in because it's in your head, but it was never in theirs. So that's my approach to getting a new campaign or anything together.
The one thing that I have to say about the 12 man RPG that we had a lot of people who they rotated in and out of that campaign over the year. And the one thing I find is that our group that we had was all people who have never played RPGs before. And it was one of those things where everybody who came to the table was helping everybody else out. That was the nice thing about it. Like, people were like, I don't get this. I don't understand this. And we'd have somebody come in there like, well, this is how this is working. And, out of the whole experience, that for me was to see so many people get really into it. Like, we had at least 8 people who were there all the time, who were sold into this whole thing. And it was great. It was great to see so many people who were brand new, like Marcus even. Like, it was great. It was so much fun to do. Like, yes, 12 is too much.
12 is too much. But it's those new players that keep coming back. Like,
that's the thing.
Yep.
Instead of sitting there and watching another episode of Punisher or The Gifted or Runaways or any of those new shows that are out here, now you get to be that character in that episode. So you want to come back every week so you can be in that episode because you're part of it now. That's the trick.
Yeah.
I love doing new people.
It was fun because that's the thing. Like, I say we were able to manage to get people who were never into like playing RPGs ever. And we got a lot of people like that, like Trina, my wife, to sit down at the table. And it was great. It was a great experience. The whole thing, I think, was a lot of fun.
Even nights where like the game was chaotic and all over the place, it was still a good time. Like, nobody left thinking, well, we didn't get to this point in the story, therefore I had a bad time. We're all yelling and hooting and hollering, and Dan's trying to progress the story, and but it was always a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's what it was. At the end of the day, I hoped that it was at least fun for people to come to the table. I think that we achieved that, at least. That much
and
we got.
We did have a good story and interesting characters and stuff, but that didn't flow as naturally as it would have with the smaller group.
Yeah.
But you still get your stories, right? You still get stories even with a larger group. I mean, my group in college, when I was going to university, especially like our university group, that got up to 12 players. And I actually eventually started to train a new GM. We were playing Shadowrun at the time to actually take over part of the group. And then we would switch around a little bit too, because 12 people, that was hard to manage. But, there were still some pretty awesome nights. You get together for 3 hours and you can still do stuff and have a good time. And people leave the table and they're excited, and they're exhilarated, and they're like, so what are we doing next week? Okay, and they're all planning outside of the game. You hear them in the hallways, or even in classes, like they're already thinking about what they're going to do with their character next week, and it never happens because they always get off the rails. So
that's the way it works. And I know we had a Facebook group for our whole campaign, and we had a Facebook Messenger that was always binging. It was constant. Chatting about what's happening in the game and things like that. It was great. And the one thing that I found very helpful for me and large groups is I know people were like, don't ever split the party, but I specifically would do things that would have to split this party because you have to have two of them go either one way or the other. But the fun thing was I would always try to make it so that they would all come back together and they would end up making the story. It was...
At one point, we split the party and the party came back together and ended up being on opposite sides of a civil war that we got sort of roped into. So
each side had their own bleeding heart story.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, this is the reason why we're fighting. And they sold them into like, this is why we got to help these people. And the other side had the same exact story and very polar. Like you could see why they were fighting, but you could see why, right? Like and they're like, oh yeah, I want to fight for these guys. And so at one point they actually ended up on the other side of the.
Yep. And my character and Ben Yendel was playing in that game, which was fantastic. It was a lot of fun to play with him. My character and his character were old drinking buddies. I was the ex-sheriff and he was the ex-judge for the town. And he went past me in the smoke of this crazy battle, and I sort of saw him, but I failed my perception check really, really badly, so I didn't know it was him. And I think I got a despair, so the despair was that he startled me, and my guy just turned around and shot and totally took him out. Didn't kill him, but put him past his wound threshold and he was unconscious. But I got a triumph on that roll, so I said, well, the triumph is that he doesn't know it was me that shot him. So then I ran over and did first aid and yeah, some dude just totally shot at you and took off, but I got him for you.
Now, how do you do with the big players? I love stuff like that. You see, and those are the kind of stories that I love hearing outside of the game where people come and relay, this great thing happened to me. But one of the things that I always find really important, especially whether you have a large group or a small group, is in each single session that you're going to GM or DM, you want to make sure that every single player at your table takes away their moment to shine.
Yep.
That's always a challenge. And I've started to keep my groups at 5, except for my big Halloween productions that I do here in the house where we set up dioramas and stuff and we do all kinds of crazy stuff. But I like to keep I like to have my characters walk away going, yeah, I finally got that big kill, or I finally hit with my blaster. I was feeling like a stormtrooper for the longest time there. Those are the kind of stuff I love.
That's the thing. I think we for some magical reason, I think we managed to pull off, even with this crazy group. Everybody had their moment, and I would specifically tailor stories to help some of the people who may not be super into telling stories. So I would have them pull them out a little bit more. But it was one of those things where everybody got their chance. and we just had such a great table of people who came around. We had some amazing players that would just allow that to happen. So I think we did good on that one. I don't think I'll do it again.
But that's still amazing though, and you get it though. Like you understand that that's one of the most important aspect for your players is to be able to say, it doesn't matter if they sat there for 4 hours making dice towers for that 10 minutes that they were rolling those dice and they managed to pull off something extremely amazing. They're going to want to come back, and they're going to want to come back again because they're going to want that 10 minutes of adrenaline.
Well, and that's the thing about RPGs, and the one thing that I kind of like to talk about even on the show, and I know we've talked about it like lots before, is there's something special about RPGs and about role-playing, tabletop role-playing games that you just can't find anywhere else in any other medium, and it's because you're creating this story together as a table, as a group of people, that everyone, if you come out that one time with that one amazing story, and like Marcus is here telling you this one story that he had at the table, because there's moments like that you just can't get anywhere else, right? And
but
those are
guys
things
like
that come
me that are going to retell Marcus's story tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's amazing to see, and it's amazing to hear, and I love those war stories almost. Like you come back like months later or years later, you're like, remember that time that we did that thing? Wasn't that great? And yeah, so it's great. I love RPGs for that. Can you tell me like some of the stories that you may have from around your table that maybe may have stuck out with you?
Okay, let's go. We'll talk about our Halloween stories. And I run a big, huge game, and everybody tries to get in on it every year. And and this year, I had to run two. I had to run the same thing back to back. But we had an amazing monster rock show this year. We took Dungeons and Dragons, and we let players be the monsters, which is kind of a little bit of a different aspect of it too, because it's Halloween. Let's be the monsters. So I split it up. So I had 6 players per session, and the first night was, it was okay. It was my first time running it, and a little bit rough. And even though they're monsters, they still acted like players. Like, we're going to sneak into the town, we're going to take the sewers, and we're going to go up. We'll get in the inn, and we're going to get the harp, because it was based on a mummy. They're all part of a monster rock band. And they're trying to get to the monster rock show, and Prince Rappy, who's the mummy, I know there's a little bit of a pun in there, but his bass harp was stolen. So we have Prince Rappy, we have Count Biggles, who's a halfling vampire, we have it was just, and we have Big Furry. It's a big yeti who just plays drums. And there was like a flesh golem in there, Miss Martha. There was like a night hag in there, and these are all people. But the flesh golem, and people who play flesh golems can't talk, but this one could sing. And anytime the flesh golem wanted to say something, the only way she could do it is if she sang. So I have a method actor that actually plays in one of my games who can also sing, grabs the flesh golem and says, I'm playing this one, after reading the background. And he sang the entire night. Every time he wanted to say something, he'd be like, I want to go through the sewers and kill stuff. Right? And it was so much fun. Everybody got into their character, Count Biggles, and eventually the second group decided they were going to be monsters. So instead of actually, trying to sneak into the town and get the harp, they decided that, well, we're monsters. They stole our harp. We're going to eat the town. And that's pretty much, how that ended. But it was 4 hours. It was great. But the singing flesh golem was just absolutely, I'm never going to forget that. You're going to die if you don't give it back the harp. And it was just, I'm never going to get that image out of my head. Like, I still dream about it at night. And I wake up in a cold sweat, like he's there. He's sitting there right there in front of me singing with this flesh golem. And my wife ended up playing the big furry guy who just wanted to eat the dwarf, and was sniffing out the dwarf. And Count Biggles, of course, was trying to seduce every female in the town to build it up. But we had Gus, and part of that was Gus, who was the werewolf. And this player decided that he would use Gus because he knows that if he can bite somebody and they're still alive, that they're going to turn into a werewolf. So he figured, well, we're part of a rock band. If I can bite enough of these townspeople without killing them, we'll have enough little werewolves around to be roadies to carry all our stuff. So this is where these things got on. So, of course, Gus was trying to bite people. And every time he killed somebody, he'd put his head down. And he goes, oh, darn. So that's my little, oh, there's the little one. We saw him today, too. So
okay.
That's one of the stories we had, too. But we also take, like, Halloween's a big thing. Like last year, this year was fun with the rock band. Last year, we encompassed every single bad horror movie that you would ever find. We put a big, huge map out on my giant table that had Elm Street, Holden Field, the home of Michael Myers, and all the characters. I printed off probably about 100 first-level characters because you all got to respawn when you died. And you started off in the Bates Motel. And you had to run through the town, and you had to stop the old ones. And, of course, where your character died, you would plop down there, and of course a zombie would come up later for the zombie apocalypse. So we encompass everything that has to do with horror movies. But there was the birds that attacked. There was Bruce Campbell, who came out there and he had that one arm with just a sword attached to it, and that was it was fun. And we had 12 players for that one too, and everybody had a great time.
That's awesome.
We do awards too on those nights too. I mean, Best Death got an award. The person who got the most references to everything. And, of course, we had things from Edgar Allan Poe, H.P. Lovecraft, Carrie. We had Carrie's house,
Nice.
There's a little telekinesis in there, and, of course, we had, Elm Street and Holden, and there was the camp, Jason.
Yeah, I'm not a big horror guy, so.
No, and you know what? And I was trying to think, too, but there was his, and, of course, all the other references. And we had Stephen King's Pet Sematary right beside this church. One of the players actually who won the Best Death got killed by a giant undead ocelot named Church. So if you're familiar with Pet Sematary, you'll understand the cat's name was Church.
That's awesome.
And those are, and the players, they love it. And those are kind of the stuff from around my table. Other than that, it's just your general, oh, we're going to die again, aren't we? We're going to die again. Oh, we've gone the wrong way, or we're going to do something stupid. We have multiple groups.
That's awesome. Well, we're running a little later, but where can people find you on the web?
Where can they find me? Normally at my kitchen table, or at Happy Harbor, or at Warp One. But on the internet, you can follow me on Twitter. It's Wado Jeff, WADOJEFF. Most people refer to me as JT. Wado is a Japanese term for a certain style of karate, because in my spare time I sometimes teach that. But they can follow me there. DM Dungeon on WordPress for my blog. If you ever wanted to go that, it's been sorely neglected this month. I have no control over that. I decided to write a novel. It was stupid. But that's where you can find
you on Twitter, Jeff.
Pardon me?
I just followed you on Twitter.
Oh, excellent. Okay, that's great. You know what? Because you're a nice guy and I like you, and you like Star Wars, I'm going to follow you back. And that's only. It's just because I've been a big Star Wars fan my entire life. So
it's awesome. All right, so we are going to take a quick break here, and we will get back to talking a little bit about some of the events that are happening in and around the city here. So stay tuned. So the Northern Nerd Network is part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB, and being part of this network, it just is such a great experience so far. I've met so many new podcasters in the network. It's just awesome. But aside from that, the network itself just keeps growing. And every time I turn around, I'm like, oh, there's more podcasters like in the network. And now we have even more nerds in our little group of podcasting we have Press Start to Join, who we've had Alan and Josh on the show before. And so if you want to go check that out, go check out Press Start Join. Go check out Alberta Podcast Network. There's so many podcasting people in there. And if you want to support local awesome podcasting, go check that out. AlbertaPodcastNetwork.com. Powered by ATV. Smooth.
And we just sent our podcast off to get okayed by
Did you?
iTunes today. So
Nice.
yeah, I finally got that figured out.
There we go.
Jeff, I run a
You don't run it.
No, I
You don't run
just
it.
hit record and sit back and play. My kids saw me playing. I think it was Force and Destiny at the time, a while ago, and they got really into Dice for Brains. They're big fans of that. They're like, we're going to do this too. So my 7-year-old son decided he wanted to GM, so he did it and he's like, Dad, we got to do a podcast. Like, obviously.
It just makes sense. I mean,
everybody
really.
does them, right? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. That's a totally normal thing that all his friends do with their parents too. So we started doing that, and that was sort of season 1, we called it, and now we're on to season 2, and it's my 6-year-old daughter is the GM, and my son and I are the players with our littlest guy who's 2 running around making Jawa noises in the background. So we're Force versus Dark Side, we're called. And we're on Twitter. It's me sort of quoting the kids, which is fun. And I just submitted it, just finally figured out how to do it and submitted that to iTunes
awesome.
today. So
Way to go.
yeah.
Now you got like a legit podcasting thing.
Yeah, some kids get an allowance. Ours are going to have Patreon. So
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But, and this is I think a lot of families really, what a way to encourage kids to be creative.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah,
I love it when my kids
super
get
fun.
creative. I love it when they write us stories or if they want to do something like that too. And mine are 13 and 15 now, so they've been playing for quite a while, and they love it. And I think that I really would like to encourage more parents to spend less time watching TV or playing console games. I think we talked about this a little bit too this afternoon, Daniel.
We did.
I'm a firm believer in set aside at least a couple nights a week and turn off electronics and sit down at the table and play board games, whether it's anything else. But that is my biggest thing. If you're going to sit there and play Uno for an hour, play it. I think there's nothing you could do better for your kids than doing exactly what you're doing and taking something that's an imaginative and creativeness and letting them go crazy with it.
yeah, they come
I'm
up
going to
with
listen to it and I'm going to critique it.
creative stuff.
Yeah. And especially Sophie, she's so funny.
Yep.
She's so funny.
They're both totally ridiculous and absolutely love doing it and take it very, very seriously.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Titus is definitely one that takes things super seriously. He gets into it. He's like, Dan, did you listen to my podcast?
Yep. Every time my son Titus and Dan's son Nehemiah are really, really good buddies. So Dan will come to pick up Neo and Titus is like, Dan, are you up to date on the podcast? Like you're dragging us down if you're not. Come on.
It's great. He's awesome.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah. So talking a little bit about some of the stuff that's happening in and around the city. December 7th, we do have the Apocalypse Cow Christmas Cabaret. This is like an a cappella group that's in Edmonton.
Oh.
Yes. And they are going to be at the Nest Tap House Grill. And yeah, this is they're raising money for Yes. We've had Yes on the show, a very deserving organization. They're the Youth Empowerment and Support Services
Very
here.
cool.
Yeah, they're an awesome group of people, and it's definitely something that is worth your attention. So they are going to be raising money for Yes. They are going to be doing it on December 7th at 7:30 at the Nest Tap House Grill at Nate. And they're going to be doing a show there. So go check that out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Well worth checking it out. On December 10th, we have a live model drawing. I'm not an artist, but from everyone I know who is an artist, they say when you have a live model, it just enhances what you're able to do drawing, right? So you can actually see, you can visualize what you're drawing on paper, and so it's a great experience. There's a lot of people who are going to be at this event that can help you if you are an artist. This is happening December 10th at Happy Harbor Comics. Happy Harbor Comics is also one of those places where they do such great events. There, every time I turn around, we went to the craft fair today. It was awesome. Trina was selling her stuff. She did really well. It was awesome. She had a great time. It's always fun. They
hosted one night for one night for us to come in there and do a write-in for the Nano in November as well too.
Yeah,
I can't thank them enough.
Yeah, and they do like all sorts of different things for comic book creators, storytellers, all sorts of stuff, and they're just a great resource.
I went to a Scotch tasting there once.
Yeah, they do that every once in a while.
Yeah, and that's a great one too, right? Like that's also he raises money. He raises money for something. I can't remember what it's for, but yeah, he's always doing it for charity, right? Like
that one's for different charities. I think, and the one I went to was for Stars. So
it makes sense.
Really like Stars a lot because they saved my life.
They kind of saved your life.
I like promoting them periodically, so that's what I was there for on that one.
Yeah. So moving on to December 14th, the holiday, Ladies' Night in the IMAX Theater. I don't know what the holiday is. Have you ever? It doesn't. It looks like a movie.
Me.
It looks like a movie.
Like it's got Jack Black in it, Cameron Diaz.
Yes.
I don't know.
But they are having a ladies' night at the IMAX. So go check that out. Moving along. I mean, there's so many awesome Christmas parties and things like that happening. But on December 30th, we're moving past Christmas. We're going to December 30th. There's a Edmonton Twitch live stream holiday party. And this is happening at the High Score Pub. This is the esports pub that's in Edmonton here. It's right behind MacEwan University. It's just this little tiny bar back there, and they got a lot of like consoles, gaming things. It's great. It's a fantastic time. They're a great bunch of people over there. I know I've gone there. I've checked it out. It's so much fun. Yeah, it's basically, you know where Happy Harbor is? It's like directly behind.
Oh yeah.
So straight through.
Yep.
If you just walk, you go to Happy Harbor Comics that day, go straight across the street, past Grant McEwen, into the back, and yeah, you'll find it there. It's great. It's a nice little pub. Go check that out. And then moving along, we have a Taste of Animathon in January. I want to make sure that everyone knows about this. Because it's Animathon, man. Like it's great. They always do such a great. This is like a party for Animathon. It's a great little, just a little snip of what you're gonna get for Animathon. There's such a great bunch of people over there. Always so much fun to be a part of and to go and check it out. And that is all the events I have for now. If you guys out there are listening to this edition of the Nerdcast and you guys have an event that you'd like to share with us, please feel free to send us an email over at northernnerdnetwork@gmail.com, or you guys can go to our website, northernnerdnetwork.com. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Jeff, for joining us tonight on the show. Thank you, Marcus, for stepping in as co-host. It was great.
Always
you guys
a
were
pleasure.
awesome.
It was a lot of fun.
It's very good.
We'll run into each other. We normally do.
Yeah.
I always love having some people who are just super passionate about everything that they're into and what they're doing. And it's great to have everybody here tonight. So Thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. I got to do this whole bit at the end. I keep forgetting. We want to thank everyone who listens to the show and ask everyone, if you can, to share it with your friends on social media. The Northern Nerdcast is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATV, and is produced by myself, along with Chelsea Thompson and super producer Trina Schessel, with special guest co-host Marcus. And you can also find us on for more information on the Northern Nerd Network by checking us out on Twitter at Northern_Nerd, on Facebook.com/Northern Nerd, YouTube.com/Northern Nerd Network, or on our very own website, NorthernNerdNetwork.com. I want to thank everybody once again for watching and or listening, and I'll see you guys on the next one.
Waiting for Ron Jeremy to come out.